Good morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is the take on this Wednesday morning. Yes, it's hump day, and we've gotten through the first couple of days. And when we look back to yesterday, I'll tell you what, we had some very interesting markets, a little bit of a divergence, although both were moving in the same direction. It's just how much they were moving. When I look at the Dow finishes down about 100 points or 0.3%. You look over at the NASDAQ, it's down about 100 points. That's closer to more like 0.6%. So double the move, actually, percentage-wise to the downside yesterday. They both recovered to get to those levels. So pretty interesting to see how the day really kind of came out. And you look over at the volatility index, yep, we continue to have that little bit of a push towards the middle 18s. We get towards 18, 18 and a half, and then we pull right back down again. So we actually finished the day yesterday under 18, around 1780. But interesting to see this volatility starting to just kind of creep up, and that's something we've been taking note of late, because it's been a pretty decent move off of those lows underneath 15 on the VIX, and now getting up into the middle 18s, but not closing there, not yet anyway. Volumes. The volumes out yesterday were just outstanding once again. 46 million contracts, a little more than 46 million contracts. Tesla leading the charge, 2.5 million, almost 2.5 million contracts trading yesterday in Tesla, on a down day for Tesla, I might add. Ford over 1 million contracts, AMD over 1 million contracts. That's the million contract club right there. Really, really very active trading yesterday in those names, but across the board, 46 million contracts. Really, really nice to see that. Crude still up above 84, holding up near 84.50 actually when it came down to the close, but the 10-year has been under pressure. We've been talking about that for a little while now. We've seen some effects. Not every day have the financials actually moved with the 10-year as we've seen it in the past, but for the most part, they have. As a matter of fact, we've seen a little bit of a drawback on some of the financials as it's pulled back specifically more recently. So sectors yesterday, what was really kind of moving around? Up small, we had materials, we had energy, we had industrials, all moving up just a little bit, nothing significant. Financials, they were actually moving yesterday with the 10-year. They were down about 0.5%. Consumer discretionary down about a little over 1%. And then you look over at technology down about 0.4%. But the semiconductor index actually having a pretty decent day. As a matter of fact, not only a pretty decent day, didn't close there, but new highs for the SMH. So led by names like Applied Materials, that was up a couple of percent. Micron and Qualcomm both up decently yesterday, kind of pushing things to the upside, but not everything in that world was all roses, but for the most part, a really nice day for the semiconductors. So where was some of the movement we were seeing yesterday? Tesla, that was down 12%. A lot of that having to do with Elon Musk and some of the commentary and all the kind of, it's one of the things that he does as a CEO. He is very attracted to the Twitter world and loves to just kind of voice his opinions on a lot of different things. I say voice because it doesn't mean he's always following through, but it's always interesting to hear what Elon Musk has to say. PayPal just getting hammered. That was down about 10% yesterday. Visa seems to be the name that gets hit a lot. As a matter of fact, you look over at PayPal and some of the rest of them, Visa down about 3%. Moderna was down about 3% yesterday. That's a stock that's been under pressure, it seems like, almost every single day, as we've seen other names actually moving to the upside. And I'll give you one of those names in a second because it's having a pretty good day today. But Peloton also down a couple of percent. And some of the positives that we did see yesterday, however, I looked at DR Horton. You know, we talk about housing all the time. That was up about 5%. Gap Store's up about 4%. And Smucker, yeah, we talk about Smucker every once in a while. SJM, that was up almost 3% yesterday. So having a pretty decent day in what was a little bit of a negative market yesterday. So we kick off Wednesday with some jobless numbers. These jobless claims, lows of the pandemic. So that's kind of a positive, of course, but now we've got other issues going on because everybody's starting to look at, hey, what's going on with inflation? We look at this consumer prices up significantly, and it seems like that's something that shook the markets, at least early on. Specifically, it was shaking what we were seeing going on in the NASDAQ. NASDAQ was down about 100 in the pre-market. I saw it down over 170 points, probably got beat up even a little bit more than that, and then just started to catch back up once again. Matter of fact, the Dow, not nearly as hit. It was down 65 in the pre, it was down in the 30s. It's down about 50 or 60 points right now. I'm looking over at the NASDAQ. That was down about 50 points or so. It almost got into the green, and now that's pulled back just a little bit. But obviously, first hour of trade, a lot of movement and shifting around, and we see that very consistently. As a matter of fact, when I look over at some of the sector movements that we had seen, the financials, they started off today relatively flat. They started to move a little bit to the upside. Technology was down over 1%. That's recovered pretty nicely, at least it had minutes ago. It was down about 0.3%. Semiconductors were down well over 2%, and they actually recovered. They were less than 1% to the downside. Consumer discretionary down about 0.9%. That completely flipped, up about 0.7%. So a lot of movement, a lot of shifting going on within the market itself, and specifically within many of the various sectors and subsectors that we talk about all the time. Talked about volatility index yesterday. How about what we're seeing today in the volatility index? So a pretty decent range once again. We were in the 18s once again, and then we started to fall back a little bit because we had this amazing rally, specifically, as I keep saying, with the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ was just getting punished early on, and as I say, got all the way back almost into the green, and it's pulled back a little bit from there. But with that big move, obviously volatility started to come right back down again, got a little bit more settled. Last I looked, it was trading right around 1770, 1780, well below that 18.5 range where it had popped to once again. 10-year, just kind of floating around there, 147, 148, somewhere in that world. And I'm looking at crude consistently right around 84, either up or down, but right near that 84 number, as after having to recover a little bit a couple times last week when it got into the upper 70s. So we'll see what happens there. Bitcoin, man, me and Glenn, we were talking about this son of a gun before I came on. 69,000. Wow. We had some pretty nice movement in that. It's been all over the place again, but it's just been moving on this nice step to the upside. We've been watching this as it's continued to make those moves, and obviously a lot of different names in the crypto space reacting to that. So let's get to some of the movers that we're seeing out there. I'll give you this one. How about NVIDIA down 4.5% before you can blink? It's only down about 1%. Gives you a little bit of an idea of just how much the market's actually shifted from the opening in the first hour of trade. Pretty amazing. How about Tesla? Tesla was down about 1.5%. Last I looked, it was up 4%. How about that? I mean, it's just amazing that we're seeing some of the movement that we are seeing right now. Newmont up about 3%. Gold, that's something that has become a topic. A lot of people obviously talk about gold and silver, precious metals, as we talk about Bitcoin and some of the alt areas of the market. I mentioned some of the Moderna news yesterday and how that stock was getting hit. How about Pfizer today having a really nice start to the day, nearly 4% to the upside. It was up maybe 3.5, 3.7%, something like that. Chinese names surprisingly having a pretty decent day. Usually we see them moving a little bit more with the NASDAQ, but they were pretty strong right out of the gate. I'm looking at NetEase, I'm looking at PDD, I'm looking at JD, all those names in positive territory and a little bit better than just being in positive territory, 1% or more to the upside. Apple and Nike was what was really leading the Dow to the downside. Apple was down more than it is now, but Apple's still a little bit of a pounding, but it really is Nike down about 1.5% that's pulling on the markets as well. So let's get to some unusual. Then I've got a busy day in front of me. You can see me on the halftime report later on today and the 5 o'clock show later on in the late afternoon. So look forward to seeing you then. Got a lot to cover, Rivian and all the rest of what's going on in that world of the EV space that we've been talking about day in and day out. It's just been absolutely incredible activity. So number one, Lowe's. Stock trading right around 235.40. This is pretty interesting. We've got, again, extremely short. These expire on Friday. 8,800 of the November 12th expiring 245 calls. That's going to take a little bit of a move. I think there are other ways to play this thing, but you've got to understand the options world to know how to manipulate around. But I will say this. These 245 calls are going for about 35 cents up to about 60 cents. Looking for Lowe's to make a pretty significant move in a very short period of time. It's pretty interesting. We've seen some of this option paper in the past from Home Depot and Lowe's. This obviously is Lowe's. I'm looking at Lyft as well. Lyft is number 2. 57.60 is where the stock was trading. Oh, by the way, on Monday we had some Lyft call buying. What were they buying? They were buying the November 12th 57 calls. They bought 17,000 of those. Those are already doing extremely well. And now today we're also seeing 5,500 of the November 12th 61 calls. These are going for about 28 cents up to about 37 cents. This is a name that's absolutely been on the move. And I'll tell you what, not only that, but we were talking about this yesterday. Uber had a lot of option activity as well. And that Uber option activity was going out in time, looking for a little bit more time for that to make a move to the upside. But Lyft, very, very short term. So a little bit different, but still looking for a nice move to the upside. Folks, have a great day of trading. I'll see you at noon. I'll see you at 5. If not, I'll see you tomorrow on the take.